The collapse, the 42nd floor of Blackstone. Tower hummed with Wednesday morning energy as Lena Reyes smoothed her navy blazer and checked her tablet. As Victor Blackstone's personal assistant for 2 years, she had attended hundreds of board meetings, but today felt different. Victor commanded the glass conference table with his usual presence. At 35, he had built Blackstone Technologies from a startup into a billion-dollar empire. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal suit impeccable, and his green eyes sharp with the intelligence that made him legendary in Silicon Valley. "The Q3 numbers exceed our projections," Victor announced, his voice carrying familiar confidence. "Our AI division alone generated $2 billion in revenue. Quantum computing is ready for commercial release next quarter." Lena took her usual spot near the wall, tablet ready. She had always admired Victor's passion, the way he painted visions of the future that made everyone believe they were part of something extraordinary. But as she watched him present, she noticed what others missed: a slight tremor in his left hand. The way he gripped the table's edge, beads of perspiration despite the controlled room temperature. "The European Union partnership will expand our reach into markets we've never." Victor's words stopped mid-sentence. His face went pale, and his hand moved instinctively to his chest. Lena straightened in her chair, concern flooding through her. The board members looked puzzled, waiting for him to continue. "Mr. Blackstone," ventured Thomas Chen, the CFO. Victor's breathing became labored. He tried to speak again, but only managed to whisper before his knees buckled. Lena was moving before his body hit the floor, her heels clicking rapidly across the marble. "Call 911 now," she commanded the shocked room, dropping to her knees beside Victor. His eyes were open but unfocused, his usually perfect composure shattered. She checked his pulse, her college medical training kicking in. "It's okay, Victor. Help is coming." The next 20 minutes blurred together. Paramedics arrived with efficient urgency, their questions rapid-fire as they worked. Lena found herself in the ambulance, having insisted on accompanying him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. She held his hand as sirens wailed through Los Angeles traffic, whispering reassurances she wasn't sure she believed. The diagnosis. Dr. Rebecca Morrison was the kind of physician who delivered life-changing news with compassionate directness. Her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her brown eyes held the weight of countless difficult conversations. She found Lena in the ICU waiting room 3 hours after Victor's collapse. "Miss Reyes, Mr. Blackstone is asking for you." Lena followed the doctor through sterile corridors that smelled of antiseptic and floor wax. Victor lay in the hospital bed, looking smaller than she had ever seen him. Machines surrounded him, beeping steadily, and an IV drip fed into his left arm. His eyes found hers the moment she entered. "Lena," he said, his voice weak but determined, "I need you to hear this too." Dr. Morrison consulted her chart with practiced efficiency. "Mr. Blackstone, the CT scans and blood work have given us a clear picture. You have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The tumor is inoperable and has already metastasized to your liver and lymph nodes." The words hit the room like physical blows. Lena felt her breath catch, and she gripped the back of the visitor's chair for support. "How long?" With the same directness he brought to business negotiations, 3 months, possibly 4, with aggressive treatment. "I'm sorry, but we caught this too late for curative measures. We can focus on comfort care and quality of life." Victor nodded slowly, as if processing a quarterly report rather than his own death sentence. "Thank you for being honest, doctor. We'll need some time to think about treatment options." After Dr. Morrison left, the room fell into heavy silence. Lena moved closer to the bed, her professional composure cracking. "Victor, I'm so sorry. There has to be something we can do. Second opinions, experimental treatments. Lena, sit down." His voice was gentle but firm. She pulled the chair closer and perched on its edge. "I've built companies, made billions, changed entire industries. But what happens when I'm gone? The board will replace me within 6 months. Blackstone Technologies will become just another corporation. In 10 years, no one will remember my name. That's not true. Your innovations have changed the world." Victor's laugh was bitter. Innovations fade. New technology replaces old technology. But a child, Lena, child, carry something forward that can never be replaced or forgotten. Asterisk, the impossible request. Victor was discharged 2 days later with a cocktail of medications and a home care plan that Lena found herself coordinating. His Malibu mansion sat on 3 acres overlooking the Pacific Ocean, a sprawling testament to his success. Lena had been there many times for business dinners and strategy sessions, but never as his caregiver. The house felt different now, charged with the weight of his diagnosis. Lena set up the guest room as a temporary office so she could work while staying close enough to help when needed. Victor insisted he could manage alone, but she saw how the medication made him unsteady, how pain would sometimes stop him mid-sentence. On the 3rd evening, they sat on the deck watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson. Victor had barely touched his dinner. Lena noticed how his expensive clothes were already beginning to hang loose on his frame. "Lena, I need to ask you something, and I want you to know there's no pressure, no obligation. Just hear me out." Something in his tone made her set down her wine glass. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about legacy, about what it means to leave something meaningful behind." Victor stared out at the waves, his profile sharp against the dying light. "I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I have patents and innovations that will outlast me. But those are things, Lena, cold, lifeless things." Lena waited, sensing he was building towards something that would change everything between them. "I want a child, my child. Someone who will carry my blood, my name, something essentially me into the future." He turned to face her directly. "I'm asking you to consider having my baby." Words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Lena felt her cheeks flush, her heart racing with a mixture of shock and something else she wasn't ready to name. "Victor, you can't be serious. You're sick. You're on medication. This isn't a rational request. I've never been more rational in my life." His voice was steady, businesslike despite the intimacy of his proposal. "I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to give me the one thing my billions cannot buy: a future." Lena stood abruptly, pacing to the deck railing. The ocean breeze lifted her dark hair and she gripped the metal barrier as if it could anchor her spinning thoughts. "This is crazy. I'm your assistant. We have a professional relationship. We have more than that, and you know it." Victor's voice followed her to the railing. The late nights working together, the conversations that went beyond business, the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. There's been something between us from the beginning. She couldn't deny the attraction that had simmered beneath their professional facade for 2 years. Victor was brilliant, driven, and undeniably handsome. But he was also her boss, and she had worked too hard to build her career to compromise it for romantic complications. "Even if that's true, what you're suggesting is," she struggled for words, "it's using me. You want me to get pregnant, and then what? Raise your child alone while you die?" The decision, no. Victor stood and moved to join her at the railing, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with the salt air. "I want you to have everything. The house, the trust fund I've already established, full financial support. For you and the child forever. But more than that, I want to be present for whatever time I have left. I want to feel the baby move, to know that something of me will continue." The proposal was insane, impossible, and yet Lena found herself considering it. She thought about her own life, 24 years of careful planning and responsible choices. She had focused on her career, putting off thoughts of family and children, for some vague future that might never come. Now a dying man was offering her a chance to create life, to be part of something larger than quarterly reports and board meetings. "I need time to think," she said finally. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Victor's hand brushed hers on the railing, a touch so light it might have been accidental. "Just know that whatever you decide, it won't change how much I value you, how grateful I am for everything you've done." That night, Lena lay in the guest bed listening to the waves crash against the shore below. Victor's request echoed in her mind, impossible and tempting in equal measure. She thought about the man she had worked beside for 2 years, his brilliance and ambition, his surprising kindness when he thought no one was watching. She thought about the child that might exist, a piece of Victor that would outlast his illness. But mostly she thought about the way he had looked at her on the deck, not as his employee, but as a woman capable of giving him the one gift he truly wanted. For the first time since his diagnosis, Lena had seen hope in Victor's eyes. Despite every rational argument against it, she found herself wanting to be the source of that hope. The decision came to her in the early morning hours as she watched the sunrise paint the ocean in soft pastels. She found Victor in the kitchen, trying to manage breakfast with shaking hands. The sight of him struggling with something as simple as buttering toast broke her heart. "Victor," she said quietly, taking the knife from his trembling fingers, "I'll do it." He looked up at her, confusion flickering across his features. "Do what?" "I'll have your baby." The words hung between them for a moment before Victor's eyes filled with tears. He reached for her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. "Are you sure? Really sure?" "Because once we start down this path, I'm sure." She was. For the first time in her carefully planned life, Lena was acting on pure instinct, pure emotion. "I want to give you this gift. I want to give us this gift." Victor pulled her into his arms, and for a moment she could forget about the cancer, the timeline, the impossible circumstances. In his embrace, she felt only possibility and hope. The gift of hope 2 months later. Lena stood in the same hospital where Victor had received his diagnosis, but this time the news was different. The pregnancy test was positive. She found Victor in the garden courtyard, sitting in a wheelchair despite his protests that he could still walk. The cancer was progressing faster than expected, but his eyes still held that spark of intelligence that had captivated her from the beginning. "It worked," she said simply, sitting beside him on the bench. "We're having a baby." Victor's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Tears streamed down his face as he pulled her close, his thin frame shaking with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "Thank you for giving me tomorrow." The next few weeks passed in a blur of doctor appointments and quiet moments together. Victor insisted on coming to every ultrasound, his face lighting up each time. They heard the baby's heartbeat. He read pregnancy books with the same intensity he had once brought to business deals, taking notes and asking questions that made Lena laugh despite the underlying sadness of their situation. "I want to write letters," he told her one evening as they sat by the fireplace. "One for every birthday, every milestone, graduation, first heartbreak, wedding day. I want our child to know who their father was." Lena watched him scribble notes. In a leather journal, his handwriting growing shakier with each passing day. She had never seen him so peaceful, so content. The driven businessman had been replaced by a man who had found his true purpose in these final months. Victor died on a Tuesday morning in early spring, 3 days after Lena felt the baby's first kick. She was holding his hand when he took his last breath, and she whispered to him about the tiny life growing inside her, about the future he had given them both. 6 months later, Lena stood in the nursery of the Malibu house, now legally. Hers, watching the sunrise paint the Pacific in brilliant oranges and pinks. Baby Victoria slept peacefully in her arms, her tiny features a perfect blend of both parents. She had Victor's green eyes and his determined chin, but Lena's dark hair and gentle spirit. On the dresser sat a stack of letters, each one labeled, with a future date, a future milestone, Victor's final gift to his doTERRA father's love that would transcend death itself. Lena had also found a letter addressed to her, thanking her for the impossible gift of hope, for showing him that love could exist in the most unexpected circumstances. As Victoria stirred in her arms, Lena smiled through her tears. Victor had been wrong about one thing wouldn't be forgotten. Every day, every moment with their daughter would be a testament to the brilliant, complicated man who had trusted her with his most precious dream. The morning sun filled the room with golden light, and Lena knew that somewhere, somehow, Victor was watching over them both. His legacy lived on, not in boardrooms or technology patents, but in the tiny heartbeat against her chest and the unconditional love that had brought them all together. Like this video if the story touched your heart, subscribe for more emotional tales and share with someone who believes in the power of true love, and let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.